Hello and welcome to the Kevin Mannix Report. I'm your host for this program, which is designed to give all of us a little more information about people in our community, what is done to help our community by ourselves and by others. But also today we're going to discuss a greater community. We often talk in the context of our Oregon community or cities and counties around the state. Today we're going to talk in the context of the global community and an issue that affects all of us either directly or indirectly. Our guests today are two ladies who are involved, one lady somewhat and one lady directly, in an issue which can affect many of our citizens, and that's psoriasis and arthritis related to psoriasis. We have with us a lady who comes to us from Rome, Italy, who is visiting here in Oregon, and that is Mara Maccarone Buonfigli. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And with Mara is Chrissy Weston from the Sublimity area. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin.
Now, I should mention for our viewers that Chrissy, you are really sort of Mara's Oregon connection.
That's correct.
And you have some family here. What we try to do on the show is first get a little idea about the personal background of individuals. And while Mara will be our mystery lady, Chrissy, you can start out by give us some idea of, about your family and where you live in Sublimity, that sort of thing.
I was born and raised in the East Coast in New York, New Jersey. To a very Italian family. Moved out to Oregon about 25 years ago where I met my husband, Gary, and we lived in Salem for several years. Gary and I have two daughters, Danielle and Nicole. At the time we were married, we purchased a resort on the Metolius River in Camp Sherman and lived there. And I then came back to the Salem area approximately 8 years after that. And I started to work for St. Joseph's Church in Salem. I'm a business manager as well as lay minister there. But during the first few years that I worked there, Father Michael Maslowski came to work for us. He was ordained, and St. Joseph's was his first assignment. He then went over to Rome to study for his Ticina, his license to teach, as well as his doctorate. At which time I went to Rome, Italy for the first time and took a group of 38 people with me over there to meet and to greet Father, as well as take a pilgrimage all around Italy. And that was in 1989, which was the first time I met Mara.
Now that's a good entry point for me to shift to Mara and say, first of all, welcome to our show, and also welcome again to Oregon. And Mara, you are from Rome, Italy. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? And of course, you speak very good English, but you are also Italian, so I mention that for the viewers' benefit.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about yourself.
You're going to forgive my mistakes, are you?
Of course.
Well, I come from Rome. I was born and raised in Rome. And I lost my parents when I was very young, so I started studying by myself, going around the world. And unfortunately, when I was 19, my psoriasis came out.
So you developed a psoriasis condition. You became aware of it when you were 19.
19,
By
yes.
then, your parents had already passed away.
Right, right.
And were you independent, a student on your own?
Yes, I was independent. Then I started working, and I lived by myself. I have a well, I had a brother. He just died, and a sister, but I lived by myself. So then I got married, and I have a husband, Manlio, and a daughter. No, I wish I had a daughter, but I have a son, and Alessio.
Alessio is your son, and where is he now?
Now he's in Rome with my husband, and he's in the military service in Rome, working at the airport. So.
And your role, your official role that we'll be talking about today, has to do with the Association for the Defense
Right.
of the Psoriasis Patient. That's the technical translation, but basically it's an association dealing with helping people with psoriasis.
Right. When I got very sick in 1989, just when I met Chrissy, this happened a few months before, I decided to found an association in Italy because there was not one. And I was very sick. See, I have arthritis, and I was getting worse and worse. And I thought that maybe it would have been very useful to help people that have my disease. And this happened.
Now I'm going to interrupt you and say,
Yes.
Let's go to 1989.
Yes.
By that time, had you formed your association, or was this something you were still planning to do?
I was planning to do that. It was just formed in 1989.
Now, how did Chrissy Weston come into your life? Let's ask Chrissy about that first, and then ask Mara.
Well, on the first pilgrimage I went to, Mata and her family was the American connection for all of the people in Rome, most particularly priests who were away from home. And Mata would open her home to all the people to come and have dinner with her.
Cook, thanks.
She would cook a Thanksgiving dinner for them, an American Thanksgiving dinner. So Mata's home was Father Mike Masowski's home while he was there, while he was away from the United States. So he introduced Mata and I. And, you know, there are times in your life when you meet someone and there is that connection. Since then, we have been as close as sisters. So that is how we became friends.
So you have your faith connection, which brought you to Rome.
Correct.
And then you have your family connection in terms of your ancestry.
Correct.
And now you, in a way, have your new family in
That's
Rome.
right.
Yes.
So Mari, you met Chrissy.
Yes.
And Chrissy found out a little bit about your condition.
Yeah.
We should mention, Americans think of psoriasis as a skin condition, but there's more to it than that, and perhaps you could help explain.
Yes, there is more to it. Yes, it's a skin condition, but it's a social condition too. I mean, a person who has psoriasis, especially, well, you can easily see in my hands, psoriasis with arthritis is very difficult to live. You don't lead a good life. You need help from doctors, you need help by the social, in the sociality you have to live. You have to find your right way of getting on, because therapies are not sure now. You can try so many therapies, but nothing makes you feel very, very well. You can stay better.
And you've developed, besides having what might be more visible as a skin condition, the arthritic element can be crippling in more serious elements of the disease.
Right, right.
And you do have that element in yourself.
Right, and because of that, I've tried to do so many things for other people, and I'm very interested in research. See, here in the United States, you do a lot of research, and you're doing very well, and I'm willing that in Italy would happen the same, but it's very difficult, very difficult.
But you, in a way, have taken on a cause in a way that many Americans would. We're great volunteers. We love to do this, that, and the other. And you decided to go ahead and form this association to develop funding for research in psoriasis and to help also psoriasis patients. Now, how did Chrissy connect up at that point? Chrissy, maybe you can help us with that.
Well, you know, the first time I went, and then subsequent visits, it was very difficult for me to watch Mata because the way she opens her heart in her home to others, and yet just to open a bottle cap, just to use a knife is such a tremendously difficult task. Those things that we take for granted, you know, so simple. And to watch her try to open a car door and to walk. And so consequently, I became very interested in anything I could do to help the foundation establish monies for research and therapy, and she goes to Congress with doctors to try to develop, not only in Italy, but in other countries as well. Watching her live, and how painful it is for her to live, was the catalyst that made me want to do something.
Now, I should mention here, too, that in working together on this, you've had this Rome-Oregon connection. You've visited with one another, but the main focus of this was your desire, Mara, to get something going in terms of this association and the challenges of putting that together, especially in Rome, in Italy, where it's usually expected the government takes care of everything.
No.
Before we go any further, though, and since we know the government does not take care of everything, I'd like to mention to our audience that if they would like some more information about your organization and what you're doing and that sort of thing, if they would like to help in any way, you can write to us, folks, at the Civil Justice Foundation. And that's, of course, an Oregon foundation which will then provide you with access to the international organization. The Civil Justice Foundation does not focus on this issue, but it can be a facilitator for you to get in touch. And you can write to the Civil Justice Foundation at 2003 State Street, Salem, Oregon 97301. And if you didn't have a pencil handy when I just mentioned that, I'll mention the address a couple of more times during the show. And our thinking is that if people inquire of the Civil Justice Foundation,
Yes.
we'll connect them up with your association in ways in which they can help. But this is truly an international connection, and now I want to pick up with how you came to visit with one another back and forth.
Yes.
When was the first time you came to Oregon?
In 91.
Correct.
91. Because Chrissy had the idea to open a restaurant after my name. So it was called Mara's Restaurant. So it was so nice to see Mara's around Sublimity, that sign so big around Salem. And so I came for the open house. You say that?
Yes.
So I came for the open house, and from there I stayed a month. That the year afterward I came again because my son wanted to come again because he can die for basketball. So he went to play basketball with some schools here in Salem. Gary, Chrissy's husband, took him because he likes to play basketball too. And so since then I've been coming nearly every year. I missed the last 2 years because I have a very bad accident. I broke my leg, so I didn't come. But as soon as I put my foot on the floor, the first thing I did, I came here. I went to an international meeting in Cuba. I was in the dermatologist part, explaining psoriasis seen by the patient. And so I took a lecture on that. That was very interesting. And I would like to do that around the world because I, with my group of study in Rome, are part of the International Foundations of Psoriasis. So we all exchange experience. And I must say that America, North Europe are very, very much ahead of Italy. I wouldn't like to say that. I mean, if
You would like to see Italy further along, but the reality
Yes,
is
yeah.
you've been pushing and prodding. Now, you set up the office in Rome.
Yes.
And you've got the equipment and began trying to share information about psoriasis.
Right.
How did you go about that?
Very difficult. Well, we asked someone to give us the office, someone to give us a typewriter, someone to give us the telephone, and actually we don't have employees. We only have volunteers that work with us because we don't have money for that. So it's me, my husband, and other 3 persons that work very hard because the association is very big. In Italy we are 2.5 million.
2.5 million
Millions,
people
yes.
in Italy are
Yeah.
involved in the association.
Right. So, and that's a lot.
And this association runs with no paid staff.
No.
And basically the facilities are donated.
Donated, yes.
And
right.
of course that your goal is to raise money to help fund research.
Right. That's the first one because it has been done some, but now they stopped because they don't have any more money. So, and I was so depressed because I thought something was coming out because in America, in the United States, you discover a gene, the 17, that's the number, gene for psoriasis. And in Italy, they did the same. So they are together working. And, but then they have to discover 5 more or 6. And they need money. So
the research funds just have not been flowing from the Italian connection.
No.
And even in the United States, it's a challenge to make sure that research is continuing.
Right. And meeting every year with international groups, that helps us. So to do this, it's money too, because to come here, it's money. And very often, I take my own money to come here, because the association doesn't have the money to pay my fare. So no air company will pay the fare for me till now. But so I didn't even ask really. But when I just said something, I said, "Oh, we don't do that," so that's all right. I mean, I do.
So the situation is that you often put up your own money to do
Yes.
the traveling to the conferences and the like.
I want to go on. I mean, I know that we are on the right side of the people. See, I don't want to, I'm giving this message. The psoriatic patient, either he has only psoriasis or arthritis, he doesn't have to feel an handicapped person. So I don't feel handicapped, even if I am sometimes. As she said, I can't open a bottle, I can't do anything. But then I say, if I stop, I mean, I'm not using these 2 fingers, so I have to use these 2 and see what I can do. Maybe tomorrow I can do better. Tomorrow. And this is the message of hope that I'm giving to the people, because in Italy we have many young people suffering of psoriasis and arthritis, and that's sad. I don't want them to feel that they are so, they don't fit in this world. See, they don't go to school. They don't want to go to school, they don't want to go with other people, so that's terrible.
Well, let me pause and ask Chrissy about how you then became involved in the work of this association and the support that you've given to it. How did you get connected up that way?
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know how, there wasn't a certain point. The point that was the mainstay for me was to watch Mata and to watch her. When she opens a bottle, she must use her teeth. So when I tried to get involved in the work, the only thing I could do was to go to the people in the company and the organizations that I know here and to talk to them about this disease. I have worked with the Portland office, and that is a psoriasis foundation here in the United States, and to try to get Mata as much help as she can to be able to go to Switzerland and look at that therapy, what therapy is available for them, so that she is able to articulate that to the 2.5 million people who are suffering with this disease.
Now, as we've gone along here, you've also developed a magazine, and you have one there that perhaps you can hold that up so that folks can get a chance to see it. This is one of the more recent editions of the Adipso magazine.
Right.
Now, this is a publication that you put out on a regular basis to share information about what's being done.
Right, and what we do.
So subscribers or supporters of the association will get this magazine.
Yes, they will get this magazine, and it will be translated into English, thanks to Chrissy, that she got a CD for the computer that it translates Italian into English.
So there'll be an English language version of this magazine.
And we will thank you in English, not only in Italian.
Well, let me ask then, the focus being on research, would this be research that's carried on both in Italy as well as in the United States, but the funding that you're talking about would be to fund the research in Italy?
Yes, yes, this will be for Italy, yeah, because you have enough money in America. That's what he told me.
Now, in terms of the kind of traveling that you do to conferences, you mentioned that you give presentations.
Yes.
Do you talk from your personal perspective as well as what I'll call the more global perspective, that is how you have addressed the issue of the psoriasis and the arthritis, but then also talk about the research and what's being done?
Oh yes, yes. Well, these are the points I always talk about. Well, I don't talk much about me. I don't want to. I mean, I wish I could cut my hands and not show anyone, but now I have it, so I have to face it, and I go ahead with it. I mean, I talk a lot, so people look at my face and not in my hands. And yes, and the score I would like to get is just the research.
What is the most immediate focus of the research that you would like to see? Is it any particular aspect? You mentioned the genes. Is that the studies that's most important right now?
So when they discover the genes and what causes psoriasis, they can prevent psoriasis. So, and they can find the cure for psoriasis. So doing these studies is very important. So I don't know if I will live enough and see the psoriasis being treated well. I don't know, but I hope, at least.
Well, one of the things you've done as you've built on your hope and your faith, you keep connecting up with Chrissy and coming back to Oregon and trying to link up with some of Chrissy's connections.
Yes.
This has become something of a tradition with you, Chrissy?
Her coming?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Every year, at least once a year, we try to, either for her to come or for myself to go to Italy. I think I've been to Italy about 20 times in the last 10 years.
Yes.
And not only myself, those friends of mine who go, and only my friends, I call Mata, or I give my friends their number, and her number, and ask that they join together, because I know she will make the experience in Italy a more meaningful one for them. But yeah, the time together is important. It has opened a whole new world. Each year I do take pilgrimage, and I take a group with me. I have taken 16 groups to Italy.
Yes, so many people. Yeah, and I didn't host all of them in my house, but if they want it.
Well, you know, we have a connection between science and faith here, in the sense that your faith community brought you together. But you also understand that in this physical world of ours, one of the ways God expects us to also help ourselves, and then one of the ways we can do that is by supporting this research so that we can find a cure and address the issue. And while speaking about that, I want to remind our audience that I did say earlier that if you didn't have a pencil handy, you might grab one, and I hope you have by now. The organization you can contact in Oregon, which will connect you up so that you don't have to write direct to Rome or whatever, or of course, I guess you could use the internet if we wanted to talk about email, but let's talk about snail mail right now. You can write to the Civil Justice Foundation, and the address is 2003 State Street, Salem, Oregon 97301. And the Civil Justice Foundation will connect you up with our international connection on psoriasis research, the Association for the Defense of the Psoriasis Patient. In the United States, we would probably just call it the National Psoriasis Association or some such. In any event, it's the Civil Justice Foundation, 2003 State Street, Salem, Oregon 97301. Returning to this topic of research and what you're trying to continue to do, I have to mention that one of the things you seem to do is to continue to network, because Chrissy happened to find out that my family and I were going to Italy, and the next thing I knew, she was connecting us up with Mara and having us call Mara when we got there. And here you are dealing with a bunch of Americans from Oregon you've never met before, inviting them to your home
Nice.
and putting on this magnificent Italian dinner. It was just amazing to me, the kind of sharing that you showed there, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh,
it was our real Italian experience, and the only connection we had was Chrissy Weston had suggested we contact you.
Well, see, what I found since I met Chrissy, well, okay, I like her, and you can easily see that we like each other very much. We are like sisters, but the thing is, I like you, people from Oregon. Well, maybe I was lucky, I met all nice people, but you are so nice. For me, it's like to be in my family. See, I came from the meeting in Cuba, and as soon as I touched the United States, I said, oh, I'm home. So I feel so comfortable here. See, I talk to everyone. I go around Salem. I know everyone in Nostrum. I know everyone. So that, oh, you're back. If I miss 1 year, someone in one store said, oh, you didn't come the last 2 years. So they're so nice. And I feel home. I mean, you're so gentle, so good-hearted. I don't know how to say the words. I mean, all the...
Well, you're saying plenty of words, right?
I don't know. In Italian we have so many words, like splendidi. How would you say that?
Splendid?
Yes. Oh, yeah, splendid. Yeah, is that enough?
Well, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I like you, I mean, to be with you and share. So anytime you come to Rome, my home is open to you, really.
We'll call it the Mara Connection,
right.
Chrissy Weston. Well, the reason why we do this show is to talk about volunteerism as well as how government works and the connections, the citizen connection with government, the government connection with the community, but citizens and citizens, churches, this whole cycle of life where everything is interconnected. And Chrissy, the thing I wanted to ask you about is, have you thought much about the Mara connection and how we seem to get connected up globally through this whole process? And you've been an entrepreneur here, you've been involved in church work. What does this tell you about how we all work together?
You know, it seems, most particularly during this age of high technology, that we are connected quickly. It's also important to make sure that we keep those connections human and real. The connections that we have with each other, whether they be by faith or whether they be by friendship or however they are joined, we are meant to help one another along the way. And we can no longer assume government or someone else will take care of it. When an opportunity is given to us to help someone, then we are obliged. When you went to Rome, the only desire of my heart was that you would enjoy it as much as I did. And the way to make sure of that was to make sure that you met Mara. So that's how we interconnect. We allow those opportunities to come into our lives, and we utilize them. Mara has sent as many people from Rome here as I have from the United States there.
Well, let me shift back then to Rome and to, you mentioned a conference in Cuba, and of course I'm somewhat familiar with that because we've talked about it, but I think our audience might be interested in hearing about it. We'll set aside the administration's continued policy about the
Yeah.
Cuban embargo.
Right,
and
yes.
all the travel
It took me
difficulties
3
you have
days
to
to
go
come here,
through
yes.
to get back to the United States.
Yes.
But tell us about the conference in Cuba and what developed at that recent conference.
In Cuba they are very poor, so there is an association of dermatologists, dermatology from Cuba and Italy. So every 2 years we go to dermatologists and experts in dermatology in skin disease and give speeches about that. So we brought our experience and we spoke to them about the new gene that they discovered. So that was very, very interesting for them because they really cannot do anything. Well, I'll say nothing.
Well, so what you're trying to do, for instance, at that conference was you're bringing information, the
Yes.
research and background information,
Right.
not just on psoriasis, this was on
Skin disease.
skin
Yes,
diseases,
yeah.
and
There was
bringing
one
that
day.
to dermatologists in Cuba so that
Yes.
they can gain some additional information to
Right.
use in their practice.
Right, and it was one day dedicated to psoriasis, so it was very good. And it's an experience for them. But then it's very interesting, now in November we will have a big congress in Rome for patient and dermatologists, only on psoriasis. So, and that will be, for sure, I will report all these, and how kind you were to invite me here. I thank you very, very much. And if I may say something, I even met children nice here. I went to Blanchette School this morning, and Blanchette is the name?
Yes, Blanchette,
Okay. Blanchette.
Catholic Mid-High and High School.
Yes,
Central
and
Valley.
I met 2 classes, and they were so excited to talk to me. So I told them, let's exchange, and they were very interested. Why do you have psoriasis? And someone said to me, so young. I said, thank you. And then
So you're also, you're an ambassador,
Yes.
cultural ambassador, a
Right.
goodwill ambassador, and also an advocate for this research that
right,
needs
and
to
it
be
was
done.
very nice to meet them. They were so interested, and they keep asking questions about the church and how the church is in Rome and how is Rome. So, and they wanted more time. And then I said, well, I will be back soon. So even you do children that like us. So thank you.
Well, one of the things you've mentioned is this Congress that's coming up in November 1999. And what's special about that is the interaction between patients and dermatologists.
Right.
Often we think of these scientific gatherings and everyone's talking in research terms. Chrissy, have you been involved in this at all, or should I be asking Mara about how these congresses work?
I think I have been on the external, not on the
Right,
internal
yes.
workings, so she would know the answer.
All right, well then Mara, can you help us with it, just briefly?
Yes.
Why are you getting patients together with the dermatologists at this conference?
Because the doctors don't spend much time for you. So this will be an occasion. The patient will be there and will ask the doctor, why, what can we do? So, and he has to answer. We invited 3 or 4 doctors, if they can come, from the United States too.
Well, then I'm going to interrupt you at that point and say the main point then from that is to sensitize the doctors to what the patients are feeling and need.
Right.
And of course that's part of the process of understanding and dealing with the disease.
Right.
We have to stop now, and I thank you both for joining us on the
Thank you very
program.
much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
And
you.
I thank our audience for joining us on the Kevin Mannix Report and our guests today, Maccarone Buonfigli and Chrissy Weston. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.